Hi folks, do you ever struggle with locating and catching shad in the summertime in your home lake and then keeping them alive for your hybrids and stripers or for your catfishing trip? In this video, I'm going to give you some pointers on how I locate and catch shad on a consistent basis at my home lake and how I keep them alive in my bait tank. I'm Clay and you're watching Respect the Fish YouTube channel. So the most important thing to consider is location. Just like they say in real estate, location, location, location. If you don't know where the shad are, you're not gonna be able to put them in your boat. So here's some rules of thumb that'll help you. If you watch this video, you're not gonna immediately be able to go catch shad in your home lake, but what I hope it will help you do is to think a little bit differently and try to experiment and find out where the shad hang out in your lake. Once you kind of figure out their pattern, it'll repeat itself year after year. But you have to put in some time and effort. There's no shortcut to being able to catch these fish. What I was taught was to look where the wind is blowing, because the wind will concentrate plankton up on a certain bank or a underwater hump or point, and therefore the shad will build up in that area because they feed on the plankton. That is a great rule of thumb to keep in mind when you approach a lake. Knowing that it's summertime, you may want to look at some wind-blown points and humps in the main part of the lake. However, there's a trick to that too. Whenever those shad are deeper than 15, 20 feet deep, it gets really, really hard to net them. So what I have started to do, instead of going where the wind is blowing, I try to find weeds, cattails, stick-ups in the back of coves in about 4 to 10 foot of water. And usually I can throw my net a few times and catch all the shad I need for a trip. And that's not necessarily where the wind is blowing. I'm just around structure because they are a bait fish. They want to be safe from predators. So therefore they're up against weeds, lily pads, cattails. If you can find that sort of structure in the back of a cove in say 4 to 6 foot of water, you are golden. That's where you're gonna find a lot of shad. However, if you're in a clear lake, that may not be the best place. You may have to pull out deeper because the water's clear. I fish very muddy lakes and consistently put shad in the boat in 4 to 6 foot of water, even though it's the middle of summer right now. I'm filming this, it's late July. It's in the evening time, and I just caught all the shad I need for my trip tomorrow in about 7 and 8 foot of water. If it was in the morning or real late in the evening, they would be pushed up there where those cattails are that I was just throwing my net around, and they'd be up there in 4 and 5 foot of water around those cattails. Because the sun's still high in the sky, they tend to pull out deeper into 5 to 10 foot of water. It's still shallow enough for your net to get over them and catch them, but it's deep enough that they're comforted. They're not too hot, they're not stressed, they're in 10 foot of water. So that's one of my tips. Not only look where the wind is blowing, but if that doesn't work for you, go to the back of a cove and look for lily pads, cattails, stick-ups, those sort of things. Another tip for location is to look around bridge pilings, especially the wind protected side of the piling. A lot of times those shad will stack up in there and you can throw your net along those pilings and catch lots of shad. Also look for shade. They don't want to be in hot water. They're stressed out by it. So a lot of times you'll find them in the shade around bridge pilings and bridges. If you get to the lake early, another location you could try is a marina or docks with lights on them. A lot of times you can run over there, throw your net a few times, and you can fill up your whole bait tank with just a few throws of your cast net. Or you can throw it along the boat ramp before everybody gets there and it's still real early. A lot of times shad will be up there on that plankton and moss that's grown up over the boat ramp. Although looking at windblown areas is a good idea, I've also had the reverse to be true. I've also been looking where the wind isn't blowing this year, and I've started to realize where the wind is blowing has always been the advice that I was given, but that water may be 88 degrees, and then I go across the lake to where the wind's starting to pick up, the wind protected side, and that instead of it being 88 degrees, it may be 85 degrees. Well, those shad would rather be in the 85 degree water more so than in the 88 degree water. So I think temperature has a lot to do with it. Another tip I have for you is to invest in a good casting net. I can't tell you how many times I've seen other people throw a 3 and 4 foot cast net from their boat or from the shore, and they just consistently struggle to put fish in the boat. In the state of Texas, you're allowed to have a 7 foot radius cast net. So it's a 14 foot diameter pancake when it lands. That's the legal size you can throw in freshwater, and it's honestly not that hard to throw. It's going to be frustrating at first as you try to learn it, but after 20 throws, you're probably going to be an expert at it. I use a bait buster cast net. It has a 1/2-inch mesh. It's 7-foot radius, 14-foot diameter, and I use 1.5 pounds per radius foot on it. So that's a big, heavy cast net. It's good for year-round, even when the shad are in deep water. This is a big enough and heavy enough casting net that you can throw it over those shad in the wintertime that are in 20+ foot of water, and you can still consistently catch them. Another tip for locating shad, not only in the summer but year-round, as well as any fish you're chasing year-round, is get familiar with your fish finder. The fish finder is your friend, and if you understand how to read it, it's going to just unlock the whole lake for you. So what I did today was I drove around this wind-blown area, and I just kind of zigzagged from 6 to 10 to 12 foot of water until I found where all the shad are hanging out. And they're just in this whole general corner of the lake. And I'm going to show you some screenshots of what I was looking at that told me this was a good area to start throwing my cast net. So another advice I have for you is to invest in a good bait tank. I use a blue water bait tank. It's a 30-gallon bait tank. It cost about $550 to buy, and then about $150 to ship. So it is an investment. You spend about $700 on this bait tank. However, this bait tank is insulated. It provides circulation, and it also filters the scales and the slime out of the water to keep those shad alive. It's very critical out of all the times of the year. In the summertime, it's so critical to have a good quality bait tank that's insulated. What I do is I fill up my bait tank at the house with city water, and I actually throw about 1.5 gallons of frozen milk jugs in the bait tank as I'm filling it up. What I'm trying to do is get that water temperature below 80 degrees, say 76, 78 degrees. And that'll by far help your shad not get so stressed out in the summertime, and it'll allow them to be healthy, even to keep them there overnight until you go fishing the next morning, if that's what you're doing. Also, I add up to 3 cups of rock salt into my bait tank. It's a 30-gallon bait tank. I've heard you can put as much as a cup of rock salt per 10 gallons of water. I don't typically use that much. What I like to do is just use 2 handfuls. I also treat my city water with what's called Amquel. You can buy that all on Amazon, real cheap. It's real hard if you're just going to use your little bass trackers, 5-gallon bait tank and try to keep shad alive in the summertime. That's going to be very, very challenging. If that is the situation you're in and you can't afford, or you don't have a room for a bait tank, you need to really work on chilling that water. Don't stress them out and put too many in there. But water temperature seems to be one of the most critical things, keeping that water a nice chilly temperature below 80 degrees. You don't want to chill the water too much. Otherwise, whenever you put them on a hook and you throw them in the lake, they could die just from the stress of the water temperature being 10 degrees warmer. You want to be about 5 degrees or so from what the lake temperature is. I'd like to conclude this video by encouraging you to be mindful of the resource. If you catch more shad than you're going to use, please let some go. Don't leave them in your bait tank to die. Don't leave 20, 30, 40 shad in there to die. Take what you think you're going to need and then a little bit extra, but try to be mindful and respectful of our resources. Thanks for watching, folks. I'm Clay. You're watching Respect the Fish YouTube channel. If you enjoyed this content, please think about subscribing and hit that thumbs up button, and we'll see you in the next video.